you. All right, before we get started with today's program, I wanted to just share, we collected feedback. We had a workshop where we engaged with you at the end of the day yesterday. And I wanted to just share with you some of the feedback we received, which is going to help continue to inform us and help as we make decisions and moving forward of where we want to prioritize. But I thought it would be nice for you to hear some of your own feedback. So I'm just going to read through these in no particular order. Purpose could be communicated in the pre-job planning meetings. Learning more about the CTS world has shed light on what we do. Focus on talented people. Acknowledgement that we need to spend time on training people. Shift in focus. Other companies envy what we have at DN Tanks. Finally, on the right track with focusing on people. Hard to find quality people. Going to work in the morning, the whole crew has a smile on their face and they enjoy working for the company. There is a sense of pride in working here. Wouldn't that be amazing if that was every job site? Being able to achieve the 5-year vision, we will need to outwork our competition. Other companies are struggling with the same issues. DN Tanks feels different. I feel in a better place. We are not just building tanks anymore. It's about the community and people and building tanks. More connection should be made for the crew to what the purpose of the tank is, the community, who it's serving, the owner. How do we get this message down to the TTBs and the locals? Bridging generational gaps is a big challenge and big importance. More than just about financial success, DN is about the people that work here. Feedback from the employees has been taken into account for the BHAG and the vision. Small company feel has not been overlooked as we've grown. I love this company. Great place for people to grow. What we do is special, and we need to focus on the best people. And finally, just some general feedback about the BHAG. These words are more powerful than a dollar value. The BHAG will require honest feedback from our TTBs to really have all they need to thrive. The BHAG, everyone noticed that there's no number in the BHAG and it focused on people. This is much appreciated. The group also noted that it is nice to see the company is asking what it will take to thrive. And this is something we haven't necessarily done before. A lot of opportunity in the company and highlights the career growth potential we have working here. And finally, at DN, it feels like a family. It feels like we're all working towards the same goal, many opportunities. So hopefully, you all feel that gives you a nice summary of yesterday, and what it helps us is inform us on things that are important to you. But that's some great feedback, and we're going to collect more as we go through this week and share it with you, and as we move forward, we'll take that information and it will inform where we prioritize and focus to help continue to provide you with the resources and support you need to be successful, as Bill discussed yesterday. So as we kick off this morning, we're going to focus on the third D, drivers, the bottom left quadrant, or our strategies. And there's 4 business strategies that we have outlined that we believe we need to execute on to achieve our vision. The first one is invest in our people, and that's being led by Denise. The second one is drive scalability and digital transformation, and that's being led by Jeff Tellier. The third one is grow in existing markets, and that's being led by Kevin Peacock. And the fourth one is improve operational competitiveness, which is being led by Chris Brown. And so today, we're going to dig into each of these to give you some insight into the initiatives that we think we need to tackle over the next 5 years to accomplish our vision in each of these areas of our business. And then we'll end each of those sections to tell you what we're specifically focusing on in 25 to make progress towards 2030. And each of the champions is going to come up and lead that discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Denise and the team, her team, to invest in our people.
Imagine if in 2030 we have all the right trained and motivated people and all the right roles needed to achieve our 2030 vision.
Imagine if in 2030, listening, learning, and engagement comes through in all of our interactions with leadership and in with each other.
Imagine if in 2030, each of us has all we need to deliver for DN and to advance our careers.
Imagine if in 2030, we are not just hiring a body to fill a spot today, but we are proactively hiring skilled workforce for the future.
Imagine in 2030, the culture or job size creates a positive environment where employees want to come to work and grow their careers.
All right. Thank you, guys. Oh, yeah. I think this stage gets higher every time I get up on it. Okay. Okay, so the question is, how do we go from imagining it to making it reality? Well, that's the work that we need to do over the next 5 years. And we've laid out a roadmap of initiatives, programs that we need to put into place that will help us get to that vision, that 2030 vision that we're looking to do. And when we get this roadmap in place, we will strengthen the core values that we all know. We will have built on the amazing history of DN Tanks, and we'll have become the employer where employees want to show up for work every day and want to grow their careers. Now, on this roadmap, along the way, there are going to be many opportunities for every employee to be engaged in the process and to really bring to life the employee value proposition. We're going to continue to build out our talent acquisition team and our talent acquisition processes. Now, later today in the breakout sessions, you'll have an opportunity to meet and to talk with our new talent acquisition director and our new field recruiter. And we're going to be asking you to give us some feedback on how we can improve our processes. We've tasked this team with putting into place new and better processes for finding, selecting, and hiring talent for DN Tanks. So as Christian said, we want to move away from just finding a body to fill a spot to finding skilled, experienced construction workers who have our core values, want to come to work, travel with DN, and grow their career. That's what we're looking to do. We're going to continue to work with the leadership team to design and implement organizational structures that support the 2030 vision. I counted at least 4 presenters yesterday that talked about how within their group, they had already started to look at their organizational structure and to improve it for the future. And designing and developing an organizational structure is really about identifying all the work that needs to get done because of the systems, the processes, the products that we're trying to create, and then organizing that work in a series of different jobs, sometimes creating a new role because of new systems and processes that need to be handled, and then putting that into effect. A company is just like a machine. If all of its structures and its systems and processes work together and are aligned, it's well-oiled and it just hums along. If those things aren't in alignment, that machine still works, but you can hear it grinding away. And that's what we don't want. We want to be the well-oiled machine that's working. We're going to put into effect and put into place career paths, identifying every step along the way from when someone joins the organization and grows their career. Now, In the field, you might think, well, we already have that, right? We hire people as locals or as apprentices, then they become a foreman, and then or become a journeyman, and then a foreman, and then an assistant and a super. Easy peasy, right? Well, that's not what a career path is. A career path is about identifying the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities that are needed every step along the way, and providing the training and the learning opportunities to advance and grow their careers, providing those resources so that they can do that, right? So we're going to build on the work that's already been done with the competencies and put that into effect. We're going to put into place best-in-class onboarding programs, right? We'll do that for both the field and for the office. If we're gonna hire the best talent that we can find for DN Tanks, we have to set them up for success when they get here. And a good onboarding program means that when someone comes on board, they can quickly adapt to their new role, they can integrate with the DN Tanks culture, they understand the expectations that we have of them, and they go from being that newbie on your job site to being a productive contributor faster. We will build and put into place a succession planning program. We want the future leaders of this organization to come from within whenever possible. And a succession planning program isn't just about who's going to replace Bill when he retires, who's going to be the next VP of whatever. It's about identifying who are going to be the next leaders at every level within the organization. Who are going to be our next foreman, our next assistants, our next superintendents, the next general superintendent. So we will look at every level within the organization and design a program where we're evaluating on a regular and a consistent basis our future leaders, and then putting into place development programs so that they understand and we can provide the resources to them for them to grow their career at DN Tanks. Now, this is a lot of work, as not the only, but one of the biggest HR geeks in the room right now. I will tell you, working on these kinds of programs and putting them into place is exciting. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Bill told you last night, you stole my thunder last night, by the way, Bill. Bill told you last night about the plan to make all of these programs work right and to do it right. We're going to bring the teams together that are working on these programs. Learning and development, talent acquisition, and human resources will come together as the people function. And to be successful at this, we are going to need to bring in additional expertise from the outside to help us build those best-in-class programs that the company needs and that you deserve. All right, so that's our roadmap for the next 5 years. What are we going to do specifically in 2025 to get us started on the right path, right? Well, we're going to continue 2 goals that we started in 2024 and get them completed. And these 2 goals are foundational to making it all work. And again, Bill talked about the why we need this last night. The number one thing that we need is to complete and execute on our field hiring strategies. Later today in the breakout session, we'll be talking about what we did, what we accomplished in 2004, and the work that we still need to do in 2025. And then we want to get some feedback from you on how to make that successful in the field. Our second goal is to complete the implementation of the field technical competencies. Yesterday, you spent time with Ed and with Patrick to talk about where we're at with our competency management system and the rollout of Kahuna. We will complete that implementation in 2025 in the field. We want all of the employee assessments to be completed by the first half of the year so that we can take that information, design training programs to meet those needs and to lessen the gap between where our employees' competencies are today versus where we need them to be in the future. Okay? We have commitment to bring on additional field trainers, and we'll be hiring a curriculum developer that will help us design training programs that most effectively help us have our traveling tank builders and all of our employees learn more effectively in the skills that we need them to have. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff for the next driver.
Imagine if in 2030, systems and processes are aligned across all regions and products.
Imagine if in 2030, all the people that need to use technology have what they need and know how to use it.
Imagine in 2030, SharePoint, Power BI, Bob, HCSS are an everyday way of life.
How about a round of applause? Thank you. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is Jeff Tellier, and as Bill mentioned yesterday, my areas of responsibility at DRN are accounting and finance, technology, and operational excellence. So I'm excited to introduce and talk a little bit more about our next business strategy, drive scalability and digital transformation. And before we get into it, I want to spend a little bit of time to help educate, what does this really mean when we're talking about this? So at DN, when we talk about drive scalability and digital transformation, it's making sure that our systems and processes are in place to help support our intended growth. It's improving our performance as we continue to grow as a company. It's finding ways to invest in emerging technologies, right? AI, artificial intelligence, is a lot of buzz out there. You have ChatGPT, you have Copilot. It's finding ways that we can leverage that technology here at DN. It's streamlining and automating our business process to make sure that we operate in the most efficient manner. And it's fostering a culture of innovation and agility while also leveraging data to help inform decision-making. So over the next 5 years, we're going to focus on several key areas to help deliver on the envisioned future that Keith, Don, and Jeff just talked about. And first, that's going to be the business planning. So for those of you who may not be familiar with business planning, this is a process where each function in the organization, whether it's sales, it's technology, it's finance, it's estimating, they sit down as a group and they understand where they are. They look at their strengths, they look at where they need to improve, they look at their organizational structure to make sure that they're set up to help support not only everybody in this room here, but also the rest of the organization. And so the business planning process is an opportunity to make sure each function is aligned for where we want to be in 2030. So we started this work out a few years ago with the sales group and quickly recognized the value that if we brought along all of our functions, what the value of this could have to DN. So in 2025, we plan on finishing this. And being able to finish this in 25 will help us leverage the outputs of this and put us on a great path towards delivering us towards our 2030 vision. A lot of the work in the business planning will help identify, clear roles and responsibilities for each of our functions and our people at DN. The next on the roadmap is technology strategy. So over the past yesterday and more today, you'll hear about all the things that we've done over the past, 5 years, right? It began with Spectrum back in 2019. Then we implemented HCSS. Then we leveraged Power BI. We have the WOW. We have Kahuna. We have HiBob, right? So we've done a lot with technology over the 5 years. So it's building off of this momentum. And doing so will allow us to leverage technologies to continue to grow and be more efficient. So we've engaged with an outside consultant. You might have heard that yesterday during the technology roundtable, who's going to help us develop a long-term strategic roadmap of everything that we need to do when it comes to technology at DN. We've done a lot over the last 5 years, but again, we need to build on this. And so this strategic roadmap will have us focus on, continuing to build out our cybersecurity defenses, right? AI can do a lot of great things, but AI can also be used for a lot of bad things. So we need to make sure that our cybersecurity is put into place. A lot of you probably have a lot of the training that has to be completed. It's annoying, I get it, but it's important for all of us to be educated and understand to make sure that we're protecting DN from cyber threats. It's also focusing on implementing some key components over the next couple of years, right? Supporting sales as they look to implement CRM. It's supporting scheduling that Chris will talk about a little bit when he talks about his business strategy. And it's also preparing us to leverage AI, right? In order to leverage AI, we need to make sure we have a solid foundation around our data governance and policies before we can start leveraging that great technology. Next is risk management. So I don't think I need to remind anybody in this group, but construction business is very risky, right? There's a lot of risk in everything that we do day in and day out. And so we need to make sure that as an organization, we have strong risk management processes and they're embedded in all of our standard operating procedures and trainings. Everybody from superintendents to project managers to project engineers, we need to make sure that strong risk management practices are embedded through everything that we do at DN, essentially creating everybody to be a risk manager. So we've started this process. We put together a cross-functional group that has operations, safety, finance, estimating, work acquisition to help put a lot of these pieces in place starting in 2025. And then last is the core business processes. So for those of you who may not be familiar, we have 5 core business processes at DN. First, it starts with sales, right? So that's Kevin and his team going out and identifying future projects and opportunities for DN. Next, it transitions to our second core business processes for out for bid. So this is where the work acquisition team puts together and makes a strong effort to try and go and secure that job for DN. And then it transitions into the third, pre-job planning, something that should be very familiar to this group here, right? Sitting down as a team and working to make sure that we put together a very thorough plan of how we can successfully execute that project. The next is project execution. It's delivering on that plan, right? Following through on everything that we talked about when we sat down to plan a job. And then lastly, our last core business process is project closeout, right? So sitting down and making sure we have a great process to transfer all of the great information, whether it's things that we didn't do well or it's things that we did great. How can we share that information across the entire organization? So doing so will help us, executing all of this here is gonna help us deliver on where we wanna be in 2030. Now, while this might be a lot of work over the next 5 years, it all starts with what we plan on accomplishing in 2025. And so first is gonna be implementing elements of our technology strategy. We need to continue to build out our structure. You know, we recently hired somebody that's gonna help us build out our data and application side of technology, something that's really important given everything that we wanna do over the next 5 years. It's continuing to leverage the cloud, right? SharePoint. You know, we can access all of our files and documents anywhere on the web. It's continuing to shore up our cybersecurity threats, make sure that DN is well protected against bad actors and people trying to compromise us or steal our data. It's helping make sure that we have well thought out governance policies so that we're well structured and organized so people can access things in a very efficient manner. It's training our people, right? As we continue to bring on new applications, we need to make sure we bring our people along, right? Training everybody in this room is critical so that you can efficiently use and leverage the power of these technologies as we continue to grow. And then lastly, it's supporting our partners in sales and construction as they look to implement CRM and scheduling. And then the last thing is completing the business planning process. So I talked about we've made a lot of great progress over the past couple of years. We've started on the front end with work acquisition, you know, sales, estimating, engineering, and marketing. We've gone through operations, and now we're focusing on the back half of the shared services. So finishing this will help us put us in a well position to help deliver on a lot of the things I talked about over the 5-year roadmap. And so in closing, before I turn it over to Kevin to talk about our next business strategy, I just wanted to, you know, as preparing to deliver this message, I reflected over the past 5-6 years since I started with DN in 2018. And I look back at, you know, when I started, you know, we were filling out paper timesheets, right? And we had to send those to payroll to get processed. Now you look at, you have HCSS. We're able to complete all of our timesheets and get that information into payroll in a much more efficient manner. You look back in 2018, you look at how we had to access all of our files and systems. You know, we weren't on the cloud, so trying to access that data in the field was very cumbersome. Now we have everything on SharePoint. You know, we've invested in making sure that we have all of the connectivity with Starlink and other things so that we can stay connected with the field and help support you guys from the office. So looking back over the last 5 years, you know, we've done a lot and we should all be appreciative of where we are, but it helps get me excited and makes me feel confident that we're gonna be able to deliver on the next 5 years of everything that I just talked about. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Kevin, who's gonna talk about growing sales in existing markets.
Imagine if in 2030 we're recognized as leaders across all of water for new tank construction and CTS.
Imagine in 2030 our general contracting capabilities give us a competitive edge.
Imagine if in 2030, the work acquisition team has worked effectively with our clients to set our operations team for success on all of our projects.
Imagine if in 2023, non-circular tank structures are a standard part of the solution we deliver.
All right, thanks, fellas. Non-circular tanks. Wow, those are some pretty aspirational statements there, some pretty lofty goals. And I'm excited to talk with you about for the next couple minutes here how we're going to get there. You know, what's our roadmap? Similar to the other business strategies, we've got these aspirational goals and places we want to get to in 2030. Well, we need to set a roadmap up so that we can achieve those goals and set some initiatives. So over the next couple minutes, I want to talk to you about five things that we're going to focus on between now and 2030. And the first was a little bit about what we talked about yesterday. It was about building DN Tank's brand. And we talked about how we are number one. We're number one in the water tank market right now. When clients think of water tanks, they think of DN tanks, they think of pre-stressed concrete tanks. That's awesome. We're in a strong position there. But we want to build on that. We want to be number one in wastewater storage. We want to be number one in CTS and our services. We want to be number one in water, wastewater, CTS as a general contractor. We want to build on this great brand that we have. That's our first thing. The next item kind of ties to our brand. It's around messaging, and it's consistent messaging. And when people think messaging, sometimes you think external. It's what we say to our clients. And yesterday we covered a little bit on our value proposition. That's messaging going externally. That's a little of the why people build pre-stressed tanks, why they want to work with all of us. That's great to have consistent external messaging. But we also want to have consistent internal messaging. We all want to know, where do we work? What are the states we work in? What are the geographies? Do we work in Canada? What's our strategy there? Is operations set up for success in Canada? Are we working in Guam, in Saipan? Are we working in, which states are we working in? That's one item around geographies. Another is around our products. Type 1, Type 3, CTS, possibly square tanks. What is our messaging internally so we're all on the same page with each one of those products and how we want to convey that to our clients? In addition, just DN tanks. When people ask you, what does DN tanks do? How do we describe that? How do we describe that to one another? How do we describe that to our families? How do we describe that to our clients? Well, you know what? We want to have some consistent messaging around that too. So these first two major initiatives are really around our brand and this great company we've built and how we can continue to build on that. The third one here is what we call go-to-market strategies. And we had a little taste of this yesterday as well. Joe Papo came up here and talked about our CTS strategy. And one thing you might have noticed with Joe's strategy, when he was conveying that, it wasn't just a sales strategy. He was talking about estimating. He was talking about procurement. He was talking about operations, how we can have a company-wide and enterprise-wide strategy for each one of these markets. So we have this comprehensive one we're building out for CTS. We have business strategies for water and wastewater, but we want them to be just as comprehensive as what we're doing for CTS. And a lot of that ties not only to sales and our work acquisition, but it ties to this room, how we then have a strategy around operations. And these strategies aren't just for 1 year. These are 5-year strategies. These are looking downrange, and they're adaptable. So as market condition changes, Bill talked about listening to the market. As market conditions change, we can adapt to these strategies. We want them to be fluid. So we're going to have that over the next 5 years. The next one here, processes, systems, and structure. Process and systems and structure is the foundation to all of the other initiatives. There's a quote. Bill's told this quote before, and I like reconveying it, which is the stronger the foundation, the taller the spire, the higher we can go. Having consistent processes where we're operating more efficiently allows us to build stronger, build higher. We have a few things that we've gone through in the work acquisition team. Engineering last year went through a major restructure. Estimating went through a major restructure last year. And so with these new structures in place, we have people doing new roles, new responsibilities. And so we want to make sure our whole front end of the business is operating most efficiently with these new people and these new roles. That's going to be a major thing for us to look at in 2025. In addition, Jeff Tellier talked about investing in technology, and we're going to invest in technology with CRM, and I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. So the last kind of major initiative here, which is kind of exciting, is non-circular storage tanks. We have been building circular storage tanks for 90 plus years. We've built 3,000 and we're doing a hell of a job doing that. Our clients know we build a quality tank. Our clients have also come to us in the past and they've said, hey, we've got a site where we can't fit a circle. We want to build a square. Will y'all come work with us? And we've taken that on a case-by-case basis. We've said, okay, let's assess, let's take a time out and assess if we can build this kind of ad hoc. Well, we want to have a strategy around that. We want to say, okay, what do we need to do from a sales perspective, from an engineering perspective, from procurement, from operations? How are we going to build these tanks? We want to have a comprehensive strategy around breaking into the square and rectangular, oval, all those non-circular tanks that are built out there. We want to have a strategy. It's another opportunity for growth. We talked a lot about the opportunity for growth and what that does for us. This is a big growth area for us in the future. So you see those 5 things, and you might say, wow, that's a lot to accomplish in 5 years. And I would agree. But I feel like we should have the confidence that if we put a pin on the map, we're going to knock it down. And we should have the confidence because 5 years ago, we were in this room. And we put out a plan for our 2025 strategy. And I want to report back on 3 of our major initiatives on that plan. The first was we want to invest in wastewater. We said, okay, there's a lot of big cornerstone jobs coming up. There's a new trend in the industry about focusing on wastewater. We want to be there. We've invested in wastewater. We've grown our revenues by 50% over those 5 years. In addition, CTS. We said the aging infrastructure is happening across all of the country right now. We need to invest in CTS. We want to invest in CTS. We've grown that from $8 million a year to $30 million a year over that period of time. The last is in the Rocky Mountains. There's 8 states we were really focused on. There was New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Arizona. So you think about those 8 states there, the inner west Rocky Mountains, my favorite. And those 8 states, we saw a lot of tanks being built, not pre-stressed. There was a lot of steel tanks getting built, a lot of cast-in-place tanks getting built, and we said, we got to change up our strategy. So we started to introduce the Type 3 product line. We put boots on the ground. We opened up a sales office in Phoenix. We put someone up in the Pacific Northwest. We opened up the Littleton, Colorado office. We invested in that area. Revenues went from $10 million a year to $50 million a year in those 5 years. And we feel like it's going to continue to grow. That's what gives us confidence. That's what should give us confidence that when we put pins on a map, that we're going to knock those pins down. So with that, we got to kind of take this step by step. The 5 initiatives there, that's a lot to take on over 5 years. So we got to tackle one first. And if you remember which one I said is the foundation, it's around process. So for 2025, we're really going to focus on that yellow pin there, process, systems, and structures. And we have 2 goals that we want to tackle in 2025. So the first goal here is what we call the core sales process. And this is what I talked about with our change in structure with engineering and estimating that we're going to reassess all of our processes to say, are we operating the most efficiently, the most productively to service all that's on the front end of the business? So that's number 1. And we kind of talked about that already. But the second one I want to spend a minute on, and that's on our customer relationship management, CRM. Currently, the work acquisition team is tracking 3,000 opportunities. Now, some of those could bid tomorrow. Some of those may bid in 10 years. But that's 3,000 different projects that we need to track. And so we need a comprehensive system to help us do that. In addition, we have 6,000 clients that we are actively talking to on those opportunities. So there's a lot of data to try and manage there. Our current CRM system, that software that helps us manage all of this, is about 10 years old. And it's done us great over those 10 years. But there's newer technologies out there. This ties exactly to what Jeff was talking about, investing in our technology. So there's newer technologies. We want to integrate AI into this as well. We want to spend this time in 2025 to evaluate where we're at, our current system, look what's out at the market, and make our selection. So we're going to have this CRM system selected by the end of 2025. We feel like these two items are foundational so we can start to tackle those other 4 initiatives. So these are the 2 goals we're going to focus on, and I appreciate just being able to communicate a little to you. I'm sure we'll be reporting back as the years go on. And with that, I think I'm going to turn over to Chris Brown. So thank you, everybody.
Imagine if in 2030, every project is fully staffed with well-trained teams to execute every project efficiently.
Imagine if in 2030, a culture of safety, quality, and wow is deeply ingrained in all of us.
Imagine if in 2030, we execute consistently across all projects and product lines.
Imagine if in 2030, every project is executed with high quality and customer satisfaction.
All right, thank you guys. And how about a round of applause for all the gentlemen that stood up here today to speak with you all with the Imagine If. A lot of these guys run one hell of a morning meeting, but I don't think any of their crews are this big. So it's not the most comfortable thing to do, but we very much appreciate you having an opportunity to get up here. I think the last couple summits that we've done we've had similar engagement with some other folks, and it's really cool just to hear the different voices, see the different people, and I think there's a passion that a lot of these folks have for the things that they spoke about. So thank you guys, and we very much appreciate it. So I'm going to cover the last business strategy, which is improve operational competitiveness. So I think as you've heard of the other 3, there's a lot of overlap between the 3 of these, which I think is great, right? It speaks to the alignment that we have with our initiatives, with the goals that we have. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about that you might have heard of in some of these other business strategies, but there's a little bit of a different flavor to it, right? And a little bit of a different effort that's going to go in towards achieving it from an operational competitiveness standpoint. So let's just talk briefly about what does this mean? What does improve operational competitiveness mean, right? And as we kind of define it, it's all about raising the bar, right? It's all about operating at our best and delivering the maximum value that we can deliver, to each other, but also to our clients on all the projects that we work on. So, we thought a lot about how to define that. And I think raising the bar, sharpening our edge is appropriate, right? And I think it resonates. So, in order to make this come to life, we need to tackle this initiative in a handful of different areas, right? And the scalable structure and processes. So, in order to keep pace with our growth, and be well positioned to be able to achieve our vision, there's so many things that we need to do with our structure and our process in order to be able to do that. So you heard from Jeff earlier. Jeff talked about the business planning process. I talked yesterday about the importance of our structure and the scalability of it, some of the new roles that have been introduced along the way. So I think, an example of this, in this room, as we talked about the structure from an operational standpoint, is the role of the general superintendent. We introduced that role into our structure, a few years ago, and, it's been instrumental in our growth. It's allowed us to really feel good about promoting those 7 superintendents, knowing that we had a general superintendent there ready to be in their back pocket and help them, right? Not every one of those gentlemen was really fully ready, right? But we had confidence in that because we had the general superintendent there and ready to assist. Clearly defined roles and responsibilities. So this also ties into the business planning process. Every role that we have in this organization, we've gone through a process to define what we call high-value activities, right? And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that has to get done. And through the definition of the roles and the high-value activities, we've really been able to focus on where we want people spending their time, right? So operationally, we've gone through this for the construction team. We're in the midst of it now with our supply chain team, almost done with it. And everybody that has a role in that organization, should clearly know what their high-value activities are, right? We're going through this process as well with the superintendents. We've clearly identified where we need you focused, right? Some of the areas that we're working on with our operational rhythm kind of put you in that place where you're focused on the high-value activities. So we're making great progress on this. It's definitely a team effort. Standardized means and methods. We heard yesterday, Aaron and Rob and Mike Harrington are doing a great job, advancing this initiative. We stood on this stage, 12 months ago or so. We kind of talked at a high level about what our thoughts were with means and methods. Over the course of the last year, the team has made great progress, on advancing this, and we're really close, to being in a place where we've got our Type 3 product line and the SOPs as it relates to how we execute our activities pretty clearly defined. The goal throughout the year, we'll talk about in a moment, is to really complete that along with our flat roof tank. A comprehensive QA/QC program, right? We have a quality control program right now, right? You could go onto your iPads, you can pull up the QC program, and you can start doing QC checks, okay? That's a great thing, right? Jeff talked about the digital transformation, right? We no longer have the books on our desk, we have our iPads. So that's great progress. There's more opportunity to grow in this area, right? And when we talk about QA, right, that goes back to those means and methods that I just talked about. Right, the quality assurance is really the process, the standard that we've defined on how we want to build. And the quality control is how well are we following that? And what are we doing to ensure that we're meeting our own expectations? So it's all about adherence to the standard and then making sure that we're doing what we said we're going to do. Scheduling and resource planning. We are a project-driven organization. Kevin just talked about the 3,000 or so opportunities that are out there. Not every opportunity becomes a project. A lot of them do because we've got a great team. But every project that we win has a number of dates associated with it, right? Early on in those core business processes, maybe in the out for bid stage, right? We've got a few dates. We've got the bid date, we've got the advertisement date, and we've got, whatever they're maybe anticipating awarding a project. We enter into the pre-job planning process. Right? Maybe there's an NTP date, there's a contract execution date. We start talking about submittals, there's dates. We start entering into the project execution phase, right? There's a lot of dates in there, right? So we're a date-driven organization, with the projects that we execute. Right now, we're very disparate with how we manage those dates, right? We have a schedule that we use between Jim, Mike, Atticus, and myself to keep track of all of our projects and what jobs are going to go when, what superintendents are going where, right? You have SISs that you fill out every day in an Excel spreadsheet, right? Some of the PMs and PEs are managing schedules on Microsoft Project or Primavera P6. There's different systems that we're using. So we need to pull all that together. So we've gone through a process to kick that off, and I'll talk about that here in a minute when I talk about our goals for 25. Lastly, an integrated supply chain strategy, right? So we, over the years, we've done a really nice job with procurement and with logistics and with our warehouses. And, Jeff Dixon came on board with us a couple of years ago and really allowed us to centralize our supply chain, right? We were decentralized. We had all those functions I just mentioned kind of separate. Everybody was working together, but it wasn't as cohesive as it is now. So we're going to continue to build on that, right? We're going to continue to meet the needs of the business with our supply chain function as we continue to grow. A key component of that is our equipment operating model. I mentioned yesterday we hired Aaron, to lead our equipment department. Right? We need to focus at a broader level around how we manage our equipment, right? And it's the full life cycle of a piece of equipment from, what should we be buying, what should we be renting, all the way through when do we need to end of life something. So that's a heavy focus for us over the next 5 years. We're already well on our way. So there's a lot of pins on the map. There's a lot to tackle. There's a lot of things that you just heard that are like, wow, we got a lot to do, and you're not wrong. But it all starts with prioritization. So as we stand here today, a couple months into 2025, we're talking about our goals for this year. The first goal, the number one priority here within this initiative in 25, is to continue with the great work that we're doing with our means and methods effort. That team that I named earlier is making tremendous progress, right? And we've got a clearly defined goal to define and build out the SOPs for our Type 3 precast dome and our Type 1 flat roof tank in 2025. Right? So those two products that we build are the two products that we build the most. Right? So that was the prioritization process that we went through to figure out where we needed to start. Right? That starting line was pretty gray when we kicked off this whole project, and we really needed to focus. All right, where do we need to start? How are we going to measure our progress? So we've made great progress on that. Right? We're meeting regularly as a team. Aaron and Mike and Rob are meeting weekly, sometimes twice a week. Formally and then ad hoc throughout the course of the week, and we're meeting regularly with the steering committee to where we're checking in on our progress. And we're making sure that we're prioritizing the right things with this goal. So this is going to take some collaboration at some point with our learning and development team as well, right? If we're building SOPs that are going to kind of change the way we're doing things, we're going to need to get to you and communicate that and train you on that and put together a program in order to get that out there to our traveling tank builders. So we're making great progress, but we still have a lot of work to do in 2025 with that. Second, the enterprise-wide scheduling process. So I just talked about the fact that we're a date-driven organization. There's a lot of things that we need to do with managing our dates and how we schedule our projects. So we've kicked off this goal in 2025 with really, Jeff had mentioned the third-party technology support that we've engaged, right, with Scarlet Group. Right? So they have an expertise in helping companies kind of figure this type of thing out. Right? We've got a lot of people in this room that know how to schedule, know how to build, but when it comes to really defining a process for figuring out what software we need to use and all the different things that we don't know, right? There's a lot we don't know that we probably should know. They're going to help us with that. So we've started that process with Scarlet Group. They're going to go through a series of interviews and interview the different stakeholders with all the different functions in our company that engage in scheduling our work, in order to get feedback for how do we do it today, and then give us input on how we might want to consider doing it in the future. So they'll bring that external expertise that's going to be very helpful for us. So ultimately, the goal this year is to get to a place where we've got that process defined, and we essentially know what tool we're going to use in order to be able to go forward in 2026 with implementing that. So lots going on. I think these are two important initiatives on that roadmap that I think I know we've prioritized in the right way, that are going to help set us up from an operational competitiveness standpoint to operate more efficiently, consistently, and effectively. So in closing, we talk often about how important it is to have an edge. Right? Improving our operational competitiveness is all about sharpening that edge. Right? And as Bill was talking yesterday, we're talking about some of the things as it relates to sharpening that edge and some of the things that we've been successful with in the past. There was I saw the heads nodding. People were understanding the challenge that we have. And this initiative, out of all of them, right? I feel like the people in this room can make the most impact.